Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started. It's 6:30 on the dot. I'm Cindy Harn from the Nature Foundation of Will County, and I'll be your host tonight. The Nature Foundation, for those of you that aren't familiar with us, is a nonprofit charity that raises money in support of the Forest Preserve District of Will County's programs and initiatives that protect nature, inspire discovery, and bring people and nature together. We are recording tonight's presentation, and it will be available for viewing on our Learn and Grow page of our website and also on our YouTube channel. And everyone that registered will receive an email with links by Friday. We will have time after the presentation for questions. Just type those into the chat and we'll get them at the end of Beth's presentation. The seminars and everything we do, for those of you that know us, are powered by gifts from our donors, supporters, and corporate partners. So thank you so much for your support. Your generous hearts keep these seminars free of charge and our mission alive. If you'd like to support our work, there's a link in your registration confirmation, or just visit our website at willcountynature.org. So it's spring, and while we might have a small but mighty live group, I think people will be catching this video later on. And we've certainly had our share of rain lately. So rainwater management is a timely topic. And our presenter tonight is Beth Peluse, the Conservation at Home Program Manager for the Conservation Foundation. In her role at the Conservation Foundation, Beth works within the greater community to encourage homeowners and local organizations to create more sustainable, eco-friendly green spaces and to mitigate rainwater management issues by planting native plants, yay, and using rain barrels. So ladies and gentlemen, our speaker tonight, Beth Peluse. It's all yours, Beth.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me. And again, welcome everyone that's joining us live and to those that may be watching this a little bit later. I hope at least maybe you can be watching if you're indoors by an open window or maybe on your back patio with how nice the weather is. But let's jump right in. Let's see. There we go. So first, we do like to take a step back, and though maybe you're watching this somewhere other than the Chicagoland area, but the Conservation Foundation is located in Naperville, but really serves the greater Chicagoland area. And we do recognize that many Native peoples have come before us and have been here and been the original stewards of the land since way before our European settlers had come here. So we try to honor them and honor their legacy by being good land stewards as well through programs like this and the work we do with the other things with the Conservation Foundation that we try to teach and share ways that we can be helping our land, water, and even communities in general. So if you aren't aware of what the Conservation Foundation does, so we are a land trust. But we do a lot more. So we improve the health of our communities by preserving and restoring natural areas of land, but also working to protect our rivers and watersheds, and as well as being that good steward of our environment. On the left here, you can see a map of all the pieces of land that we've been able to help preserve throughout our region, which makes up over 36,000 acres so far, and growing because we continue to do this good work. But why is this important? So conserving open spaces, it really, when it comes back even to our own lives, it really helps and improves our quality of life. When we're thinking about clean water, we're not just thinking about water that maybe, watering your lawn or water that falls from the sky, but we're even talking about the drinking water. We're talking about air quality. We're talking about preserving wildlife habitat, and then, also just being able to enjoy the outdoors in general, and being that responsible stewards for future generations to come. So it really has an impact on all different aspects of our lives. So to bring it to the topic of the night, which is water, beautiful, wonderful, delicious water. Why is it important to conserve water and pay attention to what we're doing to it with our own practices and land management? To take a step back and actually, go back to maybe some grade school diagrams here of the water cycle. This is to really just remind everyone that what we're doing here, even in Illinois, has an impact on the greater ecosystem, the greater environment around us. So rain may fall here, and if we have, a lot of driveways, sidewalks, concrete, and a lot of surfaces that aren't able to soak up that water, it's getting flushed into our stormwater systems, which then end up leading to our rivers and lakes, and into bigger rivers like the Mississippi, and going all the way into the oceans. And then, the cycle starts over again. So it then evaporates, the clouds form, the rain falls, over and over again. So what we're doing on our own, in our own yards, on our own green spaces, really does have an impact on the greater environment. This image just kind of shows what the different environments and how the water runoff and infiltration is impacted. So, in a completely natural environment, 50% of that water is getting seeped into the ground and being stored there and used with the soil and the trees and the plants. There's still a 10% runoff, and then about 40% of that is getting evaporated. And as you move along here to cabin in the woods, to maybe the suburbs in the lower left-hand corner, and then all the way to a very urban area in the cities, we're getting to where there's 55% runoff of our rainwater, versus only 15% that's actually getting soaked up into our green spaces. And, that makes sense. The more we continue to build and have, concrete and things that aren't soaking up the water, that's why we're seeing a lot of flooding issues, especially with the storms that are coming through now. With climate change, we're just getting bigger storms, faster storms, storms that are dumping more water in a shorter time frame, that that 15% infiltration may not even be happening because it's happening so fast with so much water. So just thinking about where we do have some green spaces and where we can continue to add to that, so that we have more of that infiltration versus the runoff. And of course, it's not just water that's getting soaked into our water systems. Cars leak oil, gasoline, there's chemicals kind of everywhere, especially when it comes to roadway systems. And when it rains, it really brings all of those chemicals and dumps it into our stormwater system. And then, winter, we do need things to help us with making our roads and our walkways safer. But a lot of times municipalities or storefront owners are using too much salt for what is actually needed to just break up some of that ice a little bit. And that salt is changing chemically the water that's going through our rivers and streams. Again, because it's getting soaked in. Once that just doesn't disappear once winter is over, it's getting absorbed into our rivers, and then it's impacting our local wildlife and what can survive in such a salty, chloride rich water environment too. Just another, visual. I'm a very visual person, so I appreciate some of these diagrams of just thinking again of, it's not just water that gets pushed into our stormwater systems. It's coming from our roofs, from our driveways, from our lawns. It's bringing things that are maybe okay, like leaves, but when leaves get combined with other things, it can kind of create some blockages. We're getting some motor oil, fertilizers from lawns, detergents, just random trash. All of that is making its way into our stormwater system, and then into our waterways in general. So taking a step back of kind of like what's within our responsibility or within our control, for that matter. And something that Americans do love is their grass, their turf grass, and their lawns. And we're not here to say that you have to rip up all of your grass and get rid of everything, because there's a time and place for everything, and if that's what you like, that is totally fine. But just to take a step back to look out exactly what that means. So lawn is the largest crop in 39 of our 50 states. In Illinois, lawn is certainly the number one crop as well. And that means Americans are spending over $40 billion a year, or an average of $500 per household, on keeping up those lawns. And that could be towards watering their lawns, especially come late July, early August, when we do get those normal drought period times that the grasses start to maybe brown a little bit, so people are watering more. And then even fertilizers and doing things to treat the lawns with herbicides, pesticides, that sort of thing. It all costs money in order to keep these lawns as green as some people do like them to be. Again, with fertilizers and spraying things and pet waste. And though pet waste, you may think, well, coyote or fox or squirrels even go to the bathroom in my lawn. I don't see an issue with that. But really, our pets aren't eating 100% natural things anymore. I know most dogs and cats are probably eating some kibble that have been processed and manufactured and that aren't necessarily naturally found in our environment. So it's not good to leave the pet waste there and then have that again get dripped into our waterway systems when it's not necessarily a natural thing. So we really encourage to live by the principle of trying to keep the rainwater where it falls. So rather than trying to push it away from your yard, if it puddles there, then into the storm systems, it's just going to overload the entire system and flood everything, your neighbor's yard, our downtown streets, everything around there. So as you can see, there's this a stormwater drain here, but there's native plants around it, which we'll get into in a little bit. But that actually will help to slow the flow of that rainwater, I guess, stream that's going to be flooding into this area when there's a big rainstorm. So those native plants are really doing a lot to help slow down the water and also keep the water where it was falling. Just a visual image of why we want to prevent this. No one wants to wake up and have this be their front yard or try to on their way to school or work, where entire streets can get washed out. And sometimes it can be there for days now. So the more we can avoid this type of thing, the better it is for our community, the better it is for our local ecosystem, and just life in general. You don't have to then think about, trying to wade through something like this, or mosquitoes starting to form or lay eggs and this type of thing if it's stagnant water not going away. So we can do things to be proactive to avoid these flooding situations. So this image is just to kind of show then what, the impervious hard surfaces, which would be our roofs, our driveways, pavement, our sidewalks, that, it really, when we have these storm clouds come through, there's really nowhere for it to go other than to continue to move and keep flowing and not, stay where it's falling. If we can even just add some green space to these exact same types of environments, where there might be an office building, an apartment building, or just a more urban setting, and putting in a few of these green spaces where we can, especially with native plants, can really help slow that water going into the stormwater system, and keep it again where it's landing, which then just creates a healthier environment and overall, creating healthier soils, healthier plants, healthier wildlife. Everything kind of just gets improved when there's more green space around. So kind of already touched a little bit on this, but one way that we highly recommend in helping with water conservation and even helping with your own water issues in your yard, if you have an area in your backyard, front yard, that anytime it rains, you end up having a small pond that maybe takes a few days to go away, or even longer than that, then we would highly recommend looking into planting some more native plants. But first, starting, what is a native plant? So a native plant is a species that was naturally found in our region. But the other part of it is that those have actually, it's part of the balanced ecosystem, because over thousands of years, it's actually evolved with our local native wildlife, such as the insects and birds that really enjoy the various plants with the seeds and the nectar, that they look specifically for the plants that have evolved with them, which is why sometimes when you when you provide maybe even just a decorative plant in your garden, it's not necessarily bad, but it may not be providing the same nutrition because it didn't technically grow up here with the other insects and animals that are in our local environment. But not all non-native plants are bad, but also we have some that are a little misbehave a little bit more than others. So our non-native species are plants and animals that were taken from a different area in the world and brought to our area. So something like hostas. Hostas are non-native, but they're harmless. They're not doing any harm to, they're not, taking up too much space and blocking out our native plants. They're not sending out chemicals or anything to hurt other plants that are around them. But on the other hand, they're not actually providing much back to our local ecosystem when it comes to nutrition. You may find, like I've heard people talking about hummingbirds coming to hosta flowers or other insects, but they're not actually providing the nutrients that a native plant would be providing. So it does also provide a little bit of ground cover for some little creatures or birds too, if that is what's needed in your yard too. But so hosta is non-native but harmless. And then on the flip side of that, looking at the invasive species, which are non-native, but also doing harm to our local environments. So something like, unfortunately, the Bradford pear or Callery pear tree, a lot of people have planted it over many years now because it has these really beautiful white flowers. It does have a rather unfortunate smell. If you have a Callery pear, then you know what I'm talking about. But these actually are invasive and they're popping up all over in our natural areas and our forest preserves. So it is an issue. It's crowding out our native plants and not playing nicely, I guess, in the sandbox with our native plants. So other invasive species that we do deal a lot with in our area would be buckthorn or honeysuckle, or even smaller, a non-tree or shrub would be like garlic mustard, which is blooming right now. So if you see some of it, please go ahead and pick it out because it is one of the plants that actually sends out a little bit of chemical into the ground to kill off any other plants in the area so that only the garlic mustard could be growing and take over the space for the native plants. Reasons to consider planting native plants, they basically, whatever condition you have in your yard, it's hot, there's shade, it's wet, it's dry, there is a native plant that will grow there. They're less costly and time consuming to keep because they don't need to be watered as much. They don't need any inputs like special fertilizers or to balance the pH of your soil. Whatever your soil is doing, a native plant can handle it. They aren't just functional too. They're very pretty. I think some people think that native plants are a certain small set of plants that maybe they don't find that attractive, but there are so many native plants that are just beautiful and add so many different colors to your garden. They're hardy perennials, so you don't have to be buying them every single year. Once they're established, they are good to go and barely need any water. Again, yep, they use the rainwater effectively. And then also, again, because they evolved with our local birds and butterflies, they're feeding them and providing the most nutrition for them and other things in our environment too. So why do native plants, or I guess why can they only be watered maybe a little bit each year and don't really need a lot of attention? And that would be because of their long root system. As you can see over here on the left, there's a few things like hydrangea and daylilies and Kentucky bluegrass, which Kentucky bluegrass is kind of our standard turf grass that we have here, at least in Illinois. Those root systems are not very long. And actually, with how short that root system is with the bluegrass, that's why it's puddling so much on the top of the surface, because it's only able to bring the water down into the soil that much, those few inches. So, in comparison, being able to plant some buffalo grass or prairie dropseed, which is a fun kind of fountain-like type of grass, beautiful black-eyed Susans, these have, feet-long root systems that are then able to draw that water down. So not only is it doing good things by taking the surface water that maybe would have been in your backyard, it's drawing it all the way down into the soil to the bottoms of those root systems, which then is keeping that area nice and moist. So then again, come July and August, they don't necessarily need to be watered unless we're having a really prolonged drought, because they're able to draw that moisture from the soil that deep down that hasn't been scorched by the summer sun. It's still nice and moist, so they're able to survive and to be just fine if it's a nice hot day, even for a week at a time. Unlike some of our annual plants that are not from around here, they just can't really survive with those short roots. So taking a step back again to maybe some grade school days and talking about the food chain, basically, everything starts with plants. Really, basically everything starts with sunshine in a lot of ways, but sunshine and water, which is what plants need to survive. And those plants then are able to grow beautiful flowers and different parts of themselves that are then utilized by other insects and birds and other wildlife in our ecosystem. So once a little caterpillar crawls on one of these leaves, it starts munching away, gets nice and fat and juicy, and is a great protein source then for our local birds. And though we can put out bird seed for our friendly neighborhood birds, they'll enjoy it, but it's really meant to be just a supplement. A lot of our birds need something else, like a caterpillar or other insects that have a really strong or a really big hit of protein for them, especially when they're rearing their young. The young need things like earthworms, caterpillars, that sort of thing, in order to be able to grow strong enough to become an adult and flourish. And then the next step in the food chain is that those things get eaten by other things, by foxes, hawks, whatever it is. But that is just the cycle of life. And really, though, what it comes down to is it comes down to the plants, and the plants you have in your yard really do matter and really can make a big impact, positive impact, by providing more food sources for the whole food chain. Here's a nice little animation on rain gardens. So I was talking about already how native plants can really draw that water down. So if you have a problem area in your yard, we would suggest setting up a rain garden so that maybe it's coming straight from your downspout like it is in this animation, or maybe it's another spot in your yard that just is a lower depression. So we would recommend that if you have a lower depression that's closer to your house, within 10 feet, that you want to do something like this, where you're drawing it away from the house so that it's not ending up in your basement, and then planting these native plants so that it's drawing that water down into the soil and not puddling up there. And so it's very easy to design a rain garden. It's really about what plants you're putting there, and just kind of one little design thing to think about. And that would be to see this diagram here with the A and the B. The A area is where you actually want to make sure, so you may need to dig down a little bit, at least 6 to 10 inches lower than other parts of your yard, because water will just continue to go to the lowest spot in your yard. So if you're controlling it and you're making sure it's going to go in exactly where I want it in this garden, so then that's going to be the wettest area of the rain garden. And the B area is then you would plant things that can handle some moisture, but aren't necessarily always in very wet soil. But some plants for where that very wet area could be swamp milkweed, blue flag iris, marsh blazing star, blue lobelia, cardinal flower, white turtle head. All of these again are I think, I know I'm maybe a little partial, but I think these are beautiful. There's so many different colors, so many different shapes that you could be planting in your yard. And actually, specifically looking at the cardinal flower, that if you are trying to attract hummingbirds to your yard, cardinal flower is something that really attracts them because of their color. Hummingbirds love the color red and really zone in on that, as well as the shape of it. With each of those little individual flowers, the hummingbird is able to kind of sip the nectar out of that kind of flute trumpet like shape as well. Some more ideas then for what to plant around the outside of that ring in the B area, the things that can handle some moisture, but don't necessarily need it very, very wet. A different type of milkweed, milkweed, foxglove beard tongue, which I always think is very pretty. It has all these little delicate white flowers on it. Some bee balm. This is actually my personal favorite because I love the look of it, but also another tip on if you're trying to attract certain things to your yard. If you know what the clear-winged hummingbird moth is, which is a moth that literally looks like a hummingbird, but isn't, it's still an insect. It's very interesting to look at. I know I have some bee balm or monarda planted in my backyard, and I love come late July, early August. And if I stand there long enough, I can see one of these clear-winged hummingbird moths come to my yard. So in case you're looking to attract that, I would recommend bee balm. Black-eyed Susans, golden Alexander, and then any of the cone flowers, but echinacea, purpurea, the purple cone flowers are always very pretty. And again, really great to help soak up some of that water. Oh, and fox sedge. So sedges are like a grass, but they actually have just those really long root systems and have there's a wide variety of different ones that you could use. And a lot of them are more of this clumping formation than kind of something like turf grass. So the picture that's on the top left here is what that fox sedge looks like. And sometimes they have some really interesting flower-like structures too that can add some interest to your garden. Just a little bit more information on the different sedges. You can do porcupine sedge, oval sedge, eastern star sedge, and long-beaked sedge are all really great for these rain garden areas too. So if you want to, again, add different textures, different levels of flowers and things, putting in a few sedges between the flowering plants too can really add some visual interest too. When you are creating your rain garden, one thing to keep in mind is bloom time. So the image on the top and the bottom are the same area. One is just earlier in this season versus later in the season. So not only is it nice to have that pop of color throughout the whole growing season, but also if you think about it, that means that you are able to provide to our local ecosystem and our local wildlife throughout the entire season. So not just having spring ephemerals or not just having things that bloom in late July and August, but having things that can, rotate in and bloom at different times is really just a great strategy to keep in mind when planning out a rain garden. Nice picture of a rain garden to think about. So rain gardens are, when they're in the circular kind of kidney shaped or whatever shape you want to do, they're called rain gardens. But actually, if they're the long skinny kind, that's maybe along like an area that has a history of having a line of water going through it, and it's more of a straight line. Those are also called bioswales too. So depending on the shape of it, it's a rain garden or a bioswale. Doesn't matter what you call it, it's still beautiful and it's still really helping with water conservation. And just to kind of show again a little breakdown of how you would want to build something like this, where you have your rain downspout and you want to get it away from your house because then you don't have the water pooling up too close to your foundation and even maybe leaking into your basement or whatever you have in your house right there, so that you're providing that area that's lower going downhill into your rain garden, which then of course is able to bring down the water lower into the soil. And here's that image, but in real life practice. This is a newer rain garden that was put in, but as you can see, the rocks are leading the water and guiding the water into the actual rain garden, where then it's going to be soaking up at the bottom there. If you would like some more information on how to create your own rain garden, the Conservation Foundation does have a resource that you can find on our website at the URL at the bottom there. It gives a breakdown of what I just kind of went over with the 2 different zones that you want to create, provide some more information of kind of how far you want to dig down that middle area, how far you want it from your house, as well as provides a whole list of plants both for sun and shade, because it does, sometimes those puddle areas can happen anywhere in your yard. It doesn't necessarily just happen in the sun. So then it provides a lot of those ideas, as well as on the back of this pamphlet, it shows you all the pictures of the flowers that we're recommending too, so you can kind of get a better visual of what those will look like in your own yard. Oh, another great tool of water conservation for your own green space and yards are rain barrels. Not only is it great because you're using free water that you didn't have to pay for in order to, water your own plants, but it's another way that we're not pushing that water maybe onto our driveways or into our water systems right away. So basically being able to collect the water that's coming off of your roof and then using it in whatever way you would like to. Another nifty little animation here. So basically you hook up your rain barrel to be directly under one of your downspouts. You probably will have to cut your downspouts because they usually go all the way to the ground, but you would want to then also prop up the rain barrel about 15 inches on either a pedestal, or I actually have at my own house, I have it propped up on a couple of different paver bricks. Or cinder blocks work too. So basically you want to do that also because it just makes it easier for yourself when you are using the water, so you can fit a water canister under there, or if you're even hooking up a hose like it is here, it helps with gravity and pulling the water out of the rain barrel as well. So you can use the rainwater to water your gardens. Again, if we're in one of those long drought times and you have native plants, they may want an extra drink. Or if you've just planted native plants, they do need a little extra TLC in the beginning there while they're growing that root system. So they'll need some extra water. You can use it to wash your car. You can use it to wash your garden tools, that sort of thing. Again, it would not be drinkable. I would not advise drinking it, but there's so many uses that you could be using it that, again, you can be saving on your water bill, not having to, use water out of your garden hose at that time. And you can make them pretty. The rain barrels are paintable. We actually, if you are looking to get a rain barrel but want to paint something like this, we do recommend putting a primer on there first so that it can stick a little bit better. But you can have a nice piece of art in your own garden along with the other flowers and things that are there already. But you can get creative. You don't have to have just a neutral color one that blends in. You can have one that stands out as well. So actually with that, wanting to promote an opportunity to get your own rain barrel. So Nature Foundation of Will County is hosting their rain barrel sales Saturday. The pickup dates are Saturday, May 18th and May 19th. But I will say you do need to get your order in ahead of time. The pre-order does end on May 13th. And the rain barrels won't be available for purchase on site, so you do need to pre-order that as well. So I guess we could maybe go into questions, or if there's anything else to add.
I've got questions if I can get my act together. Okay, here we go. Thanks, Beth. That was wonderful. Yeah.
Welcome. I hopefully that was helpful and learned
yes
a bit.
I took quite a few notes. Okay, here we go. Again, if you have questions, just type them into the chat. And as Beth mentioned, we're doing a pre-order for our rain barrel and compost bins. You can get both on the Upcycle Products page that's got the Nature Foundation of Will County. And then you come and pick up your rain barrel at our Bringing Nature Home native plant sale. And maybe you can pick up a few native plants for your rain garden too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got a couple questions. One of them has to do with one of the graphics you had grass pavers in a parking lot. So how does someone do grass pavers in their driveway and then handle it over the winter with snowfall and ice melt? How does that work? Can you do that?
Sure. So there are permeable pavers that do allow for some vegetation to grow in. I think it's too far back for me to flip back right now to that graphic, but it just kind of depends on what your if it's a parking lot or something where it's like industrial plowing, it may get a little harder to plow, but I haven't had personal experience with permeable pavers, but I do hear that it may be a little more, not time consuming, but you have to take a little bit more care when you're shoveling or plowing those areas. But really, they should be able to handle our winters and be able to get the ice off as well. They just are a little bit different than maybe our typical blacktop or concrete. So they probably are even a little less slippery because of the different levels of things going on with the permeable pavers versus a flat surface that can keep the ice a little bit slipperier, or a larger surface of ice.
And then kind of a related question, someone using ice melt on the walk through their front door, if it's not salt-based, what are some alternatives that you would recommend?
There's actually a product that's made kind of out of pickle juice, but like bromine, that and it's also not just, so there are products out there at some of the bigger box stores that kind of are that alternative salt that is a little bit better for the environment. And so you can still use that, but we would just recommend you, basically most people, and myself included until I learned better, are using just way too much of the salt. So you can still be using these things, but just only use it when you really need it. And then also probably use like at least half of what maybe you were used to be throwing out there. It's only about, maybe let's say this is a cup. You probably only need a cup's worth for a large, like about half a driveway even, and basically making sure you're spreading it versus just dumping it in clumps and then letting it try to spread out on its own. So use it sparingly and use it only when you actually need it, not just because it snowed, but if there was actual ice forming on a walkway or your driveway that you couldn't get up with a shovel.
Going back to one of your slides about the food chain beginning with native plants, Jan writes, feeding birds and growing chicks need protein, which is insects. So if you want baby birds, you gotta grow insects.
You do, yeah.
Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, and actually there's a funny joke of basically, if you have plants in your yard and they're not getting eaten by something else in your yard, then they probably shouldn't be there. So even though we want to keep our native plants to look beautiful too, but if you have, bites and chunks taken out of your plants, that's actually a good thing. You're providing for our local ecosystem. You're not, it's not just a one-way street of just beauty that you want in your yard. You're also providing a lot of nutrients for those insects, and then for those little baby birds, and so on and so forth.
Do you have recommendations for trees or shrubs that would go well in a wet area rain garden? And also
Yes.
this person says my wet area is shady.
Okay. I have seen serviceberry has actually done pretty well. Buttonbush is another one, but I can't think right now if it's full sun or if it can handle some partial shade as well. They really like wet feet though. So if you do get a little bit of sun in that area, buttonbush would be good. And of course, now my mind is blanking for other options, but there are several. And actually, if you want some more recommendations, I can put up my information again, but please feel free to reach out to me at any time with any of these questions too. We provide free yard consultations. So if you are looking to put in one of these rain gardens in your yard, but you're not sure where to start, or you have questions about certain things, we can come to your yard and provide that consultation for you for free. We can talk more about specifically what plants will work in the areas that, with the type of soil, the type of moisture, and how much sun you're getting, to get really specific recommendations for what you're doing. Because sometimes you can join one of these webinars, you can read a good book, like something from like Doug Tallamy, but trying to translate that into how do I actually start doing that in my yard can be a little bit overwhelming and maybe confusing too. So actually, I can go back and put up my information. So if you do have specific questions that maybe can't be addressed or are a little more complicated for today, I'll get rid of, rather than like making everyone sick by going fast with the slides. Please feel free to reach out to me and we can set something up to even if it's just having a conversation on the phone, or for me or some of my other team members to come out to your yard and provide that information too.
That's great. And I'll include that in the follow-up email with the link to the recording.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got another question. Which flowers would you plant along a fence line that gets swamped after rain? It's a narrow space, approximately 1 foot wide.
Oh, okay. Depending on how tall you're looking for and the amount of sun, if it has full sun, you could do things, and it maybe you don't care how tall it is. A little bit taller, what pops into my head is, purple cone flowers are beautiful and can kind of look nice along a fence line. Black-eyed Susans, butterfly milkweed, or really kind of any of the milkweed, swamp milkweed, but that could, butterfly milkweed's a little bit shorter. But if you don't get a lot of sun in that area, planting things like woodland phlox, which is a lot shorter and very pretty, has these really pretty purpley little flowers. Things like, or even things like blue flag iris is a little bit taller again, but can really take up some space, but doesn't need, a foot should be good for the amount of space that it grows, but it could then fill in that area too. So if you're trying to take up the area, not have any grass there as well.
A question about rain barrels in the winter time, because it can get
Yes.
pretty darn icy and cold here. What do you need to do to make sure they don't split open?
Yes, very good
winter.
So we do recommend that you first drain all the rest of the water, that if there's any left in your rain barrel, and take it away from the downspout area. And we even recommend flipping it upside down, because just leaving it out and with the tap open at the bottom, sometimes it's still, depending on our winters and depending on how wet it was and then how quickly it freezes, it can still end up cracking or even breaking some of the spigot off or something too with the ice. So we recommend taking it away from the downspout, flipping it over, putting it in a secure spot too, because our winter winds can be pretty strong, and the rain barrels are actually pretty light when they aren't filled with water. And then you can also then get one of those flexible downspouts too, because your downspout will be higher up. If you cut it off in order to have it go on the top of your rain barrel, you can get a flexible downspout that then can lead to the ground, and then you can direct that downspout somewhere instead of it just kind of spilling out and making an ice rink underneath your downspout too. And actually, to even talk a little bit more about the specific rain barrels that are part of your sale and that the Conservation Foundation works with Upcycle. Upcycle is the actual company that creates the rain barrels, but they are upcycling the rain barrels from food containers. They're containers that food has been shipped over to the US in. So there's a variety of different things, especially when you first get your rain barrel. You may have a scent of garlic or a scent of pickles or something that was sent over in that barrel. But the important thing is that they are food grade, safe. So the water that you're using on your plants outside, again, I wouldn't drink from your rain barrel, but utilizing that on your plants, you're not adding other chemicals or anything, even if there is a little bit of residue that's left in those rain barrels, though they are cleaned out very thoroughly before passed along. But sometimes people try to convert barrels that have had like motor oil or different chemicals in them, and we would not recommend that, because that means that that little bit of residue could do a lot of harm to your local environment when you're trying to do nice things for your plants instead of maybe killing them off a bit. But So they are upcycled, so that's even better than recycling because you're not breaking down the materials that the rain barrel is made of. It's basically essentially staying the same formation or structure and just adding in the parts that create the rain barrel. The top with the screening, and then the screening itself is really great because it's a certain size that doesn't allow mosquitoes in. So even though you'll have water in there that come the heat of summer, and if you have water in there, it may start to smell a little funky, maybe look a little funky. It still would be totally fine to water your plants, but you're not allowing those mosquitoes into that water pond where they would love to be laying some more eggs. So that's really important as well. And then even the rain barrels that are featured too, they have runoff valves already created on there so that, again, the storms we've been getting are the rainfall is everything is falling faster in a shorter amount of time. So you can fill your rain barrel up pretty fast if it's hooked up to take all the rain from your roof. So instead of having it, sometimes, there's the opening at the top of the rain barrel to then just flood out just the top. There are valves at the top of the rain barrels we sell that actually you can hook hoses up to so that you can direct that runoff away from your house and maybe into a garden versus having it just spill over and fall right next to your house too.
Great, thank you. How would someone that lives in New Jersey get a rain barrel from Upcycle?
Actually, if you go to, now we'll go back to that other URL. There we go. There we go. If you go to this website and then go to the top menu, and I can't remember, it says municipalities and cities, I think. If you go to that menu, it'll then bring you to a map of the US and you can click on your state and you can see who else Upcycle partners with people all over the US and actually into Canada and a couple other places too. So they are available in a lot of different places. I don't know specifically exactly where outside of our area, but you should check it out in case it is applicable to you.
That's great. What would be the minimum size for a rain garden?
Well, honestly, you could make it any size. Even if you just had a little small piece of, 3 feet by 2 feet. If it's somewhere that's collecting water already or somewhere that you would be comfortable with the water getting to, just adding a little indentation to make sure it's the lowest spot in the area. Again, water will go to the lowest spot. And planting, even if it's just 5 or 6 of the plants that we talked about, that will make a difference. It'll still continue to draw that water down. Now, a small area may not be able to handle a huge flood of water that is coming from all different angles, but it'll still do something, and it'll still also, again, not only the positive things of not having your yard flood for your own enjoyment, but it's also, again, creating healthier soils and healthier ecosystems by just continuing to keep the rain where it lies too. So you can make a big difference even with a very small space.
Sure. If you had to summarize some of the most common mistakes people make with building a rain garden, what would they be?
One would be probably putting it a little too close to your house. That sometimes that's the flooding problem area, so you build the rain garden where the flood's already happening, which sometimes can work if it's at least 10-15 feet away from your house. But if it's directly next to your house, you'll want to almost create a channel for the rain to go to a place that's safer for it to be and being drawn into the soil system versus drawn into your basement area. But other than that, like with any gardening or really just nature in general, it's just kind of trial and error. Some things will work in your yard that won't work in your neighbor's yard. Sometimes you really love the look of this flower, but it's not going to work for, the sun conditions that you get in your backyard. I would just recommend, if something doesn't work the first year, or if bunnies end up eating everything to the nubs the first year, because I feel like the bunnies have been pretty bad the last couple of years. Just keep try different things in that space until you find something that actually works. Because again, a native plant will work in that spot. Even if it's somewhere that you've had that's been a bare spot in your grass and muddy for years and years and years, there are native plants that love those conditions while turf grass may not.
Someone asked how to see the recording again. After we wrap up, we'll do a little magic editing, and we will post the video on our Learn and Grow page on our website, willcountynature.org, and it will also be on the foundation's YouTube channel, so you can watch it anytime and then pick out the important points that you're interested in for sure. What kind of you talked a little bit about some of the things that are available on the Conservation Foundation's website, and there's actually quite a wonderful collection of resources there. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? And if people wanted to find different guides or garden designs, what sorts of things could they find on your website?
Yes, our website is a very deep, multi-layered resource for many, many different topics. If you want to go to, you know what, I'm just gonna get out of here and I'll just go straight to I'll head to our site just to walk people through
Right.
versus, because there's so much that it's hard to just talk about it with, and again, I'm a very visual person. I like to be able to show people versus just talk about it. So this is the conservationfoundation.org website. This is our main site where you could go. So under what we do, there's a plethora of information of all the different things we do. We were just talking about one little piece of that today with our Conservation at Home program and with water conservation within your own house. But we work a lot with other areas of kind of doing a little bit more scientific and professional side of things of keeping our rivers and streams clean. We do land preservation. We're a land trust, so we do try to help conserve different pieces of green spaces that do come up. We also are a 60-acre organic farm. So if you are in the area in Naperville, so I think all of our CSA shares for this summer are sold out. I believe we still have some for this fall, but we do have farm stands. I think it's Thursday or Friday afternoons in the summer once things actually get rolling. But you can come and pick up some delicious vegetables there too. But for specifically more of what we were talking about, you want to go under the Conservation at Home section, and really any of these talking about earth-friendly landscapes and different ideas, and also just nice pictures of inspiration of what you could be doing.
Hey, Beth,
Yeah.
Can you, I'm still seeing your rain barrel and compost bin.
Oh
slide.
no, oh shoot, sorry about that.
I think you have to stop sharing that and start sharing the other option.
Yep, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Let's go here. Sorry, but
There you go.
I'll back up. Here's our main webpage is this. So the conservationfoundation.org, and then going to the what we do section. And then under Conservation at Home, there's a lot of different resources, both on the website as well as things that you can download and print out if it's something that you want to, bring it outside and look at things and in your own garden. But we have more information about native plants, about turf grass, invasive plants, permaculture, which permaculture is where you're putting in edible plants within your greater garden. So everything's kind of just working together again as a nice little ecosystem that you get to also eat from. And talking about healthy soils and healthy lawns, as well as the rain barrels and composters too. But for actual creating native gardens, you can go into kind of the different types of gardens we have, like rain gardens again, just talking about what they are, why they're important, how to, more of a step-by-step guide of how to create that in your own yard. And then down here are just different links to other resources even about rain gardens. And so we kind of break things down, and then butterfly gardens into, these types of things. We have resources for basically all types of native gardens, whatever you want to focus on is available. And then actually, while we're here, if you are wanting to have us come out to do a free yard consultation, you go to the Join Conservation at Home link, and then you can click on this button and complete a form, an interest form for us to email you back and set up a time that works for you. So you can either email me, fill out this form. Either way, we will get in contact with you to set some things up too. And then lastly, if you actually other materials too, we usually offer this up more for our partners and other organizations we work with, but there's plenty of materials for individuals that or even if you're with an a nonprofit or a teacher, we have a ton of free resources on all different topics that are there to just help people dive deeper into these areas and either educate themselves or help educate other people on these topics as well.
Wonderful. So yes, I encourage everyone to get online and check out all the resources. Again, just another way to expand your knowledge. And I think there's some really helpful, you've got some plant lists in there, some technical pieces, and I think it just adds to your knowledge and being able to do some of these things that we want to do in our yards in a better way and not make so many mistakes.
Right.
Some of us have.
Yeah. Actually, the person that was asking about the salt too, we even have Salt Smart. So that's about the cup size I was talking about, in order to cut down on how much salt you're using and de-icing and all that kind of stuff. So
that's great. Well, thank you, Beth, so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We're coming to the end of our time together. So thank you, everyone, for spending your beautiful evening with us because it's really gorgeous outside. If you live in the Chicagoland area, our native plant sale is May 18th and 19th at Isla Lakash Museum in Romeoville. So it's on our website, willcountynature.org. Come on out, check us out, and we'll help you get some native plants. So thank you, everyone. Happy gardening. Have a great spring. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Good night.
Have a good night.